15 to 20 minutes to do her presentation. I'll give her a 5-minute warning after 15 minutes. When she's done, there'll be time for questions. The panel gets to ask questions first, and then we'll open up to the audience. When we're done with questions, the audience and Mary get to leave while the panel quickly deliberates, and then we'll call Mary back in to figure the feedback in the recording.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Paola. Okay. I am a couple different things. I guess foremost I'm a student, and then maybe I'm an actor, and then I'm kind of a visual artist. But for the most part, it's been a hobby. The short 4 or 5 years that I've been willing to call myself an artist, I've been very secretive about it. I've just been putting my stuff out there without much attached to it. Sometimes a title, sometimes not even that. So what I wanted to do with all of this is, since I am going to a acting conservatory, which is a very intensive and kind of closed off program, so you can't really do anything else. You're all focused on one thing. I'll be going to a place where I can't minor in painting or illustration or whatever I plan to do in the visual arts. So I won't have any assistance that way to try to make money off of my art at any point. So that was a collection of skills that I hope to learn through this. But I think I have some more important things along the way. My essential question is a little bit convoluted, and I apologize about that, but how will the exposure and commitment to professionalism and self-promotion of my art affect my relationship with myself as an artist? There's a couple of important keywords in here. One of them is, of course, professionalism, and bold up there, because that is the exact opposite of what I am in the art world of MDI high school, with community, or anything else. I just kind of go for it, and that's kind of all I do. And I think a lot of young artists can probably say that as well, because we don't have a lot of exposure to any kind of professional world. We don't have the galleries and the venues, and we don't sell our things very often. Another one is exposure. Like I said, I've been very secretive. I don't talk about my art. People will ask me questions, and especially with some of the things that I do with much more surreal imagery, some more personal pieces, I completely shut down with this, and that was something I wanted to overcome. And calling myself an artist was a big part of that. And of course, maybe I can make some money along the way. Really nice. So this has been a very long process for me. I was in the first semester of Senior X with Mr. Puglisi, and I had 2 grand plans that did not work out. One of them was I wanted to get my license by driving around old people in the community that I didn't know to get my hours for my license, interviewing them, and then making an art film about it and presenting it at the Senior X Festival. That fell apart for a lot of reasons. I had a couple of mentors who were on board, and then those kind of fell through. My second one was I wanted to do a one-woman show. I wanted to produce a whole thing here and perform it here for like a weekend or 2, and that also fell apart for a number of reasons. Like, I got mentors stuck around for that one. People were into that. I could do that, but it was just way too much on top of doing however many other productions I was doing at one time. So I have had a long year of first losing mentors, then losing motivation because I was losing mentors, then losing sleep because I was losing motivation because I was losing mentors, and losing time because it was February. So I ended up doing the independent Senior X business this semester. So the big issue here is divulging the secrets. And what that means to me, essentially, is I needed to be honest about my work. I needed to come to terms with who I am as an artist before I could present myself in any sort of professional way. If I was going to create the persona or the girl in a suit selling her art, then I needed to understand what I was up to in the first place. And I needed to be able to share that without feeling uncomfortable and without being afraid of disappointing people. I think that is a big obstacle for a lot of artists who, if I tell them what the meaning is, then they're going to be disappointed. They were hoping for something better. They see something that they don't understand, and then, oh, is that all? Really? Okay. So, I really needed to solve that in order to. It was also making me pretty miserable, so. First step in that was talking to a few people about what specific pieces mean. I think the very first step of my Senior X was telling like one person what one symbol in one painting meant, and that was a huge step for me. Another big help was talking with Dan Stillman, who I probably told way too much about myself and my art, but it has been kind of a therapy in that regard, and he's been a great help. couple. One thing I didn't really have under wraps was talking to myself and figuring out what I had to say about my stuff in regards to me, not in just explaining it to other people, but having an identity as an artist. So the first step for that was literally examining myself. I filmed me at work doing, setting up installations and sets for my performance art pieces, which you might have seen around here, and just painting, and it goes all the way up from the middle of junior year through down to taking apart, gluing Barbies together and such, what I was doing earlier this year. And there's nothing more self-centered than making art about you making art. But getting over that was incredible, and I think I did. I really enjoyed making these pieces, and they meant a lot to me, and they really helped me understand what I look like as an artist. And it's helpful to see what other people see in you, what you're up to. And so I've got my process filmed, and then the most important thing, however, was in writing. I've always been horrible with reflections. If any of you have taken a class with Dan Stillman, or with Charlie Johnson, or with Liz Keenan, then you probably had to do a short little blurb reflection, or a page, or whatever it might be, or some sort of presentation reflecting on your art. And you do all of the elements and principles, and then they ask you to talk about what it means to you. And I would spend months just criticizing my own work, and I wouldn't pass it into Dan forever, and he'd be very lenient about it. But one of the big things that I had to do to get over this fear of my explanation not being good enough, I wasn't putting enough out there, I wasn't being honest about my work, I was hiding so many things. I was keeping every little secret. So what I did was I made these mega reflections. The first one I made was, even this one sounds incredibly defensive, I made this in junior year. Work in progress, higgledy-piggledy hell, some hits and misses. A brief overview that won't do anyone any good. That just sounds like, don't read this. Don't ever look at this. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want people to do that. And so this year, I just went plain and simple, studio art mega reflection. So I have this document that's like pages and pages long, filled with explanations and feelings and fluff about my art. And no one wants to see it, that's true, but it's there for me. And I can pick and choose what I want out of that. That's the theory, is that if I can flesh out all of this, then I can take what I want and I can share it with people. And I have all those little things right there. So, eventually I developed a skill of making those plain and simple. A lot of my research told me to be descriptive and not fluffy. So then we get onto the real stuff. Once I'd started working with me a little bit, I got an offer to put up a solo show at Real Pizza. Now, I'd been up there with a couple of artists before. Every year, Megan McCosker hooks us up with either NAHS does it with a couple other people, or we just have like a bunch of kids and they put like 2 pieces up. And I'd done that before. I put up a piece, one that fell down during a movie like a week later. But now I have a whole show up there, and it's up there through June. If you want to go see that, get some popcorn. So I had that, and all of a sudden I had to rush and get this thing done. And I did not know what I was doing. I couldn't, but I had to. So big help was Charlie Johnson, who kind of taught me how to do the matting, and he lent me his mat cutter. I know a lot of you are probably mad because I didn't return it for like weeks, but I got it back the other day, by the way, so you know that. And I hated that so much. I hated the matting. It's not fun. It's math, it's boring. I eventually got creative with it, which I will come back to later. Another thing for that, another professional thing, was requesting the venue. So I had some pretty smooth correspondence with Lisa Burton and Kristen Sandy at Real Pizza, and she gave me like a map of the dimensions of the space, and I gave her a portfolio, a professional portfolio of the stuff that I'd done, which I'd never done before. It was crazy. I had to title everything, which I don't do because I'm scared of that too. I had to assemble everything together. I had to. It was basically I was designing the space with my works, and I was choosing I think 2/3 work that I'd done before, and I made maybe a third new stuff for this whole thing. Another thing I had to do was write a bio about myself. Another thing, like how is that not self-centered? You're writing it in like third person. Like, Mary Paola is a student at NDI High School. She does art. She does this. She does that. But I did it. It's up there. It's on Real Pizza if you want to embarrass me at any point. I was dealing with deadlines and then the blurb. Let me go find that real quick. Never mind. I'll find it later. Oh, so for this, I had my prior knowledge was I like art. I think it's fun. I know what I like to do. I know what I make. I had a pretty good handle on the principles and elements of design through Mrs. Graham's class and through Dan's class for the most part. I've had a lot of performance experience, so I think I did okay with putting myself out there a little bit, but it's mostly with the performance art that I've done and performing here and at a Katie Rep and things like that. But it was kind of different. That's supposed to say venue familiarity. Every single time I change it, it comes up as venue. Maybe it's a sign. But I had some experience with that venue. I put some pieces up there before, so I was kind of okay with it. But it turned out really well. And for doing all of this, for writing the bios and for writing the statements and the titles, mostly what I used were these two white papers right here. One from the Maryland Institute College of Art, one from the University of Central Missouri. This is all to do with the bios and the title cards and how to install pieces at different places, because some people have different rules about making holes in their walls and what they want framed and everything. And then that one over there really helped me with my bio and keeping my statements descriptive and not talking, which I mentioned before. And then we have artwork, which focuses a lot on the etiquette and ethics and like what people call themselves in the industry, what the difference between why people call themselves dealers or curators or gallerists, and what that means about them and how you deal with that. And so that was really helpful, and that got me rolling. Another big help, of course, was my mentor, Art Gowie. I know, his name's Art. He's a local illustrator. You've probably seen his work if you've ever been in like Chocolate or MDI Ice Cream has his stuff up right now. You've probably seen that little hot dog. I think I've seen that like 100 times. But he's a really cool dude. He taught me a lot of things. A lot to do with pricing, especially. One of the things he said to me was, usually the first number I think of, I triple that, and then I have my price for what I give people. Because you've got to learn not to undervalue your stuff. You're always going to think that your work is worse than it actually is. He told me to do stuff every day, again, to keep it descriptive, keep titles descriptive if you don't want to be over the top. And as for matting work, he says he hasn't done it since high school, so that was a big comfort too. But even with the matting, I did it. I learned how to do it. I used the Audubon price guide book. You can see a lot of pictures of birds here, which might seem a little counterintuitive as to what I'm doing with this, but it worked. I got a lot of, like, way too much information about matting from this book. I got about the different kinds of mat that you can do and the styles and things like that. So that was a big help. Horrible day doing all of this until I started, like, getting mad and doing stuff like this, which doesn't really involve any of the knowledge that I have, but it was, I kind of stemmed off from that. After I learned how to use the equipment, I could do what I want, and that was very free. And I realized that that the mat is supposed to enhance your stuff. If you're going to frame something, if you're going to present it, then don't just do it because that's what you do. You do it to make your work better. You're framing it however you want to do it. And I like this picture in particular because this shows my progression of how mad I got. This was one of the first ones I did, and then I was like, and then we ended up with that, which I think those ones are my favorite pieces, however. So here's some stuff from my my gallery show up at Real Pizza. I think I'm pretty happy with it. One of the big struggles I had was not really knowing how much I needed coming into, like how many pieces I needed to bring with me. But I think I am satisfied with it. It's up through June 12th, I think, if anyone wants to go check it out. So this is the blurb that I wrote for it that I was talking about earlier. This was a big thing for me. So, Plenty in the Middle was the title of my show, Celebration and Parody, which is kind of the two categories that a lot of the work fell into. Examining identity, presentation, loneliness, and ego, among other silly things, through remarkably trashy sketches and paintings. And putting those kind of words to my art, especially summing up everything that I've done, was crazy. And I'm still a little bit uncomfortable even reading this thing. It seems very personal. A lot of these works are very personal, but it's something that you have to get past, and I'm not quite there yet, but it's up there. So after that, I am going to start trying to make an online community, so I can start, since I'll be in upstate New York next year, I won't be around here. Art gave me a lot of places around here where I can start putting up work and venues, and I think I might have something set up with the Criterion. I might have some work at Art in the Park. You guys ever been to the Village Green thing that they do? It might be up there, hopefully, so look for me. It might happen. But I've started putting a lot of work up on Instagram. I'm going to start a Facebook page with my stuff. And maybe someday I'll do some kind of like Patreon, Redbubble kind of thing, so people can either pledge or pay for my work. And ideally, I'd really like to have a lot of the sales go through me and whatever website I have, but that is a possibility. I'll be at a student purchase next year, Purchase College in New York, Purchase, New York. I will be, like I said, I'll be acting. I'm going to be an actor, but I want to make art a business on the side instead of a hobby, and that is a much bigger leap than I expected. Like I said, I am not quite there yet, but I hope to be soon. So what? So this has been a very, very extensive journey for me. I've learned a lot about myself. As an artist, I've learned a lot about myself, period. I've probably been sharing with some people who are close to me way more than they want to hear about my art, and I didn't think I'd ever get to a place like that. I always thought it would just be separate from me. And it's not nearly as scary as I thought it was. It's all a fear. That's all that it was coming from. I would say, oh, I don't tell you the explanation because I don't want your experience as viewers to be tainted by that. I want you to have this pure experience without my titles, without my anything. And that is just not what art is for. If you have intent, however simple that intent may be, why would you not want to share that? You should never want to protect your audience, and that's what I've been doing for a long time. And that's what I've learned, I think, most importantly, not to do. I read a very cool book called Art and Fear, which should have been the title of my senior act. I think if you're anyone who's even dabbled in the arts in any way, and we have a lot of young artists in this room, you should read this book. It's really short, it's really cool. I'm going to read a quote from this that meant a lot to me. Making art now means working in the face of uncertainty. It means living with doubt and contradiction, doing something no one much cares whether you do or not, and for which there may neither be audience nor reward. The job of getting on with your work turns upon making basic assumptions about human nature. Assumptions that place the powers and hence the responsibility for your actions in your own hands. Some of these can be stated directly. One, very important, art is made by ordinary people. No one's expecting you to be Mozart. No one's expecting you to be God. No one's going to be that disappointed because making art and viewing art are very different at their core. Things are going to be different, and that's something that you have to accept. You don't need to please people. So I want to thank a whole bunch of people, Miss Dillon and Mr. Puglisi for senior acts and everything, Dan Stillman for all of the chit-chat that we've had, Charlie Johnson for not hating me too much, for not bringing his mat cutter back too early, Megan McCosker for encouraging me to even do this in the first place, and for hooking me up with Art Galley, who is amazing, and I think everyone should check out his stuff. I'll talk about him if you want to ask me afterwards. Lisa Burton and Chris Vincenti at Real Pizza, of course, and of course, everyone here, everyone who came, all my panelists, student panelists, everyone, thanks, y'all, I appreciate it a lot. Here are my citations, and check out Real Pizza through June 12th to see my work. Thank you. Oh, I wasn't even timing.
No, you did it perfect. I'm sorry, and I flash coded.
Oh, cool. Where am I?
17 minutes.
All right, so now I guess I'm opening for questions for the panelists first, right?
So I'm curious, do you think that this experience will help you as an actor? You know, when you
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This was if I could have a whole essay about this, I'd pull it. I think there's a couple different ways to approach being an actor. That's a stupid thing to say, it's something there. There's a couple different ways in which I've kind of approached it. And one has been I've also like distanced myself from my work, from my characters. And it's easy to go out there, people don't like ask you in high school or in a community theater or anything, what did you mean when you made that expression? What were you trying to do when you said that line? Like, because it's the script, people accept that. But there's something about tying in your life and examining yourself and your relation to the people around you, and examining the people around you, examining the world around you that can affect your characters, that should affect your characters. And I think a lot of that has come from this. I've had a much stronger attachment to my performances as personal works, because I think that's exactly what they are. Everyone's going to approach different characters in different ways, just like every artist is going to have different things to say than any other one, which is a relief, I think. I hope that answers your question.
I have two questions. The first is, I know you talked about when you put 2/3 of your work in Real Pizza, and then you have to come up with a third, I think you were saying.
Well, I had 2/3 stuff from like,
Already been done.
yeah, before I got like the offer.
So do you have any fear of, like, when you have to create art for a show, that it's in production instead of being done, meaning instead of just producing art for a show, is there a fear of just doing that and not doing it from like the art? I guess I could say.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Well, do you feel rushed or anything like that?
I was definitely rushed,
Okay.
but I think that might have affected the quality in one particular piece that I'm still kind of mad at.
Okay.
But as far as like the image that I wanted to create,
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty happy. But another thing in that art and fear book, you will never match there's always going to be a gap between intent and what actually comes out in the product. And that's something that I think I've accepted. And I don't think that's too different from when you're in a time crunch of any sort, because you're always going to be a little bit dissatisfied, and I think that's kind of exciting. So maybe.
And then when talking to Art Galli, is there any tricks of knowing your, like, did they ever talk about some pieces go some places and some pieces go other, just because you have to know the target audience in a particular?
Oh yeah, I think there was one thing he said about he's like, when I moved back to Bar Harbor, I promised myself I was never going to paint like moose or the ocean or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I've started painting bears a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a part of that. I think, especially with things like commissions for people.
Yeah.
But even that, I think he said, could be kind of relaxing. Like, sometimes you need to just do art for the sake of doing art, not for the sake of getting your message across. I think that can be kind of a relief. Yeah.
Mary, where were the art installations that there were pictures of you creating? Were they here in the school?
Oh yeah, in the gallery by the art wing.
And where did they fall in this journey? Were those before you embarked on this?
The actual performance pieces that I did were all before this semester. What I did though was I was compiling that footage during this semester, because I would always film everything that I do, mostly just because I didn't want to lose it. The past 2 years I've kind of been doing that a lot. I've just been like filming myself working, which maybe is a little self-centered, but I wouldn't want to lose this period of my life. But the stuff for this project, for this particular journey, I guess, was compiling it all and making it worth watching.
So what would be your reaction? I think I know the answer, but if someone were to ask you to display an installation somewhere outside of the school versus this kind of show that's at Real Pizza? What if Chris and Lisa had said, you can have this corner and you can do an installation which looked like it was much bigger and...
Oh, you mean like a performance piece or like a big sculpture kind of deal? I'd love to do that. I really would. I don't think I would have had any drawbacks about doing that. Those are just harder to explain, I mean, people come up and they see performance art and they're like, what the heck are you doing? And that is, I think wherever I go, that would be kind of a struggle, but I would absolutely do that anywhere, yeah. I hope to, if I can, where I'm going. It might be kind of hard, but that'll mostly be just for me. I don't know. Elle?
What's your favorite color?
Red.
What?
Red.
Oh, yeah.
Red. Red, blue, and yellow. But red. There's primary colors.
Mine's red and pink.
Ethan?
Earlier you said that you felt very rushed. Would you say that you felt Mr. Rush?
He's like, I can feel his spirit from me. I was hoping he'd be here. I do feel a little Mr. Rush when I have to talk about him. When I talk for a long time, I always feel like it.
Well, first, I'd like to commend you in your ability to talk about yourself for 17 minutes and all of this deeply personal journey, which I think is also ironic since you know, really that was your senior X project.
Yeah.
So you just performed.
This is
senior
kind of the
X.
finale of my
Exactly. And so what I wanted to ask you now, after you've faced your fears and put yourself through this self-critical, reflective process, how important is it now that you've done this for you to explain yourself to other people? Does it really matter?
Exactly. That's the thing with if you're talking to your, I guess, so the place where I was at before, I guess, people would ask me about my stuff, and I wouldn't have even talked about the answers with myself. Like, I didn't even want to, like, entertain the idea that this is what it means and this is what I would say. Like, I wouldn't put it into words. Like, I would know what was happening while I was making it. I would know my ideas beforehand. But after it had been presented to people, I just shut down. But when I have honest discussions with myself and I have these big old pieces of writing, which feels so good to make, then I can, it's fine. Sometimes I can tell people more than they want to know, and sometimes I can tell people nothing, but I'll be perfectly satisfied because it exists. Having the documents is awesome. Ever?
Do you have a specific medium that you find is easier to explain than others?
To explain?
Yeah.
I find actually, I can tell you what the hardest ones are. No, I mean, I've been getting a lot better about talking about the symbols that I use in my performance pieces and in sculpture. For some reason, that's a lot easier for me than talking about my paintings. Maybe it's because they take so much longer, and I have a really strong attachment to those, and to all of it, I guess. I don't really know. I think it's all pretty equal. I don't think it has anything to do with my skill or my any time spent in any particular, my experience, I guess, in any particular medium. I think it's just all of it. Anything that has a message that I want to put out there, or an image that I want to put out there to evoke any kind of feeling, is equally difficult. But it's gotten a lot better, so I'm going to say everything.
Can you just talk for a minute about, I've seen your show, and now I want to go back and see it again, of course. 2 questions. Why were some of the pieces hung upside down? And
oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, like these ones right here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just put it on my screen as you can see. These are this whole series up here. I've been wanting to do a series of like women with bad teeth for a really long time, which there's nothing to don't worry about it. But, this is kind of, these are a little bit off-kilter reflections. With like the children in these who also have bad teeth. If you can look closer, but that's what the whole. You don't see the whole piece in there. I think there's one other child right behind my arm under there, and they're kind of not necessarily reflections of these exact women, but just reflections of adults. And they're all very upset. Although all the women are pretty happy or pretty chill, but all the children are very upset. And so they are reflections, I guess. That's why they're upside down.
And my other question was, can you talk for a moment about when you have an idea for a piece that you're going to paint, how do you develop that idea and how much does it change as you're actually painting?
I think the biggest thing that changes is often the aesthetic of it. I'll change. I like to keep a lot of the key images in there, but those change all the time. Usually just their orientation. But I have, like for example, I've got this oops, sorry. This guy right here, this took me forever. Not because it was like a difficult piece, like all these little individual pieces didn't take very long, but I just kept coming back to it because things changed a lot with this piece. I knew I wanted the bath, I knew I wanted this man, I knew I wanted the gumballs, and there's also a woman with like really raw orange flesh holding a child's tin lunchbox, like down here somewhere, but it's not in image. And that has, originally she was supposed to be above, originally she was supposed to be in the tub. As long as all the symbols are there, that usually doesn't change. And sometimes sometimes like little new ones will pop up. Like I don't think the gum was originally in there, but it came up because it related as a symbol to a couple of other things that were already going on. So I don't like to delete the big images, big symbols that I have when I'm first coming up with an idea. I like to keep those in there. And if I need to do a whole other painting that's very similar with a couple different things, then I will. But I like to keep stuff like that. Like that, the woman who with the lunchbox and this man, they have to stay there. Because if that, yeah, original symbols have to stay. Everything else can change, and I won't mind.
Do you
Just
think
kinda
about a feeling that you want to evoke with the painting? Like, does the feeling come to you first, or does the actual image come into your mind and you think, okay, now what?
It depends. A lot of the time, especially with a lot of my older work, the image definitely came first. Mostly because I didn't really want to confront my meaning very much. I didn't want to think about my intent very much. But nowadays, I'm like, I have this thing that I want to say. What am I going to make it look like? And I think that's been a very good shift. I have a little bit of both, but it's good to have a little bit of both. And now I have that. So, 50-50, I guess.
So I'll come back to your thesis question and ask literally the $64,000 question. The medium to sell, is it online now? Is it gallery? Is it, because that's the whole point of the question is how to make money, make a little bit of money off of this. Is that, you know, being in New York, being here in the area, you know, where, how do you do it?
I'm not much of a digital painter.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to figure that out eventually. But I think I'm going to be doing prints because then I can have some things online and I can have some things, like little smaller prints of bigger works that I have. I think that's probably where I'm going to find the most success. That's something that I talked to Art about. I don't really feel like I probably am not going to have a lot of success with sculpture. Certainly not going to have a lot of commercial success with performance art anytime soon. But I might do. I think prints is where I'm going to head, and I will have online stuff. And with Patreon, you just have your stuff up there, and people like pledge to like see it more. Like they don't buy pieces. It's just like I'll give you money so you keep doing this and putting your stuff online so I can look at it. So that might be a good idea too.
Cool.
You all set? Nice.
All right, thank you. Thanks.